him was also a physician, Reverend Dr. Hardy. Our assistant pastor, as you know, is a physician, and also Luke is writing as a learned scholar as well in light of the history or traditions of Greco-Roman text. However, our subject, he is not here, he is risen, is where we not only connect with first century Christianity, but also 21st century Christianity. This idea and this concept that he is not here, he is risen, is where we meet this text. And where we meet this text is how we have come to know Jesus as the Christ. This is the pivotal moment when Jesus, if you will, became Christ. There were secrets called, what is called the Messianic secret during the birth and the life of Jesus, but Jesus did not fully become Christ until he died. Jesus didn't become Christ by simply living. Jesus did not simply become Christ by being born, but the crux or the pivotal moment when Jesus became Christ was when he died. Jesus, if you will, took on that last name we know to be Christ. Amen? Amen. So we see three things happening here, though, when we see Jesus becoming Christ. You understand, he just went through a crucifixion before he became Christ. Wow, that's a concept within it of itself right there. It's interesting how when we go through something, we feel broken down. However, those broken down moments, or those moments when we feel like nothing can take us through or we can't get through, that's, if you will, where our Christianity, or we become Christ-like at our best. So there may be someone here today who may be going through a particular situation, not understanding or seeing where you're going in your situation, but understand and know that's where your faith works at its best. When we are at our worst, God is at God's best. And we see three things happening in light of what's transpiring as Jesus is not only being crucified, Jesus not only being dead, but Jesus is also resurrecting. What these three things that we see is human behavior, human misbehavior, and we also see God's behavior in the midst of this crucifixion. Human behavior. It involves the human behavior of what is taking place in light of Jesus now translating himself to being a Christ. Involves those who cared for him and those that cared about him. Understand, when Jesus was going through a crucifixion, there was human behavior going on. When Jesus was going through a death, there was human behavior going on. When Jesus was resurrected, there was human behavior going on. The human behavior that was going on when Jesus was, if you will, being crucified, you saw that people were looking afar off. There were people who cared about him and hurt in light of what he was going through. They could not do nothing, and they were expecting him to address his crucifixion. But human behavior saw him and cared about him, and their hearts went out to him. And so what happens with human behavior when they see Christ going through something, and when Jesus died, if you will, they cared for him, but also cared about him. That's a concept for us. When we see people going through bad situations, what does that say to us as Christians? We should care for them and seek to see Jesus in them. What does Jesus say when we talk about caring about Jesus in the 21st century? Jesus raises the question, what have you done as you have done unto the least of these? You've done unto me. Amen. So how we treat each other, how we care for each other addresses the human behavior of what's going on, and how we connect with Jesus when Jesus is being crucified, when Jesus dies, and when Jesus is resurrected. Understand, our human behavior leads our curiosity to seek Jesus. Yes. So when we are taking care of other people. And when we are living out our human behavior, it's our human behavior to be curious about how Jesus connects in this situation. So not only do we see human behavior happening, but also we see human misbehavior going on. Human misbehavior begins where, if you will, Jesus Christ-like or Christ-self is starting to take place as well. Human misbehavior leads our curiosity to not care for Jesus. I wish I had a praying church in here today. It's interesting how we confuse our human behavior versus our human misbehavior. Sometimes when we see evil deeds going on in life, we say, well, that's just a part of human nature and process. I would submit and suggest upon this evening, that's not the case when it comes to how God created us. When God created us, He created us to be good. When God created us, He created us to be loving. When God created us, He created us to care. When God created us, He created us not to be mean to one another and disrespectful to one another. That's human misbehavior. That's not human behavior. Do I have some help in here today? Sometimes some of us, and as a matter of fact, some of us know what it's like when we have been human misbehaving in our lives and what have you. But it's good to know we have a God who loves us enough that He looks beyond our human misbehavior and knows our human behavior to get us on track. I wish I had a praying church with me today. So human misbehavior leads us to mistreating others just as much as mistreating ourselves. But as well as, in what we see in this text, human misbehavior leads us to crucifying Jesus. However, in spite of human behavior, in spite of human misbehavior, we also have God's behavior. God, what I love about God is God corrects human misbehavior for human behavior to continue. God behavior hurts when He sees human misbehavior. God helps when He sees human behavior. Let me unpack that for a little bit. God's behavior hurts when He sees human misbehavior. Sometimes we find ourselves in life asking the question when we see a horrendous situation, why would God allow that to happen? Or when bad things happen to good people. Or when we hurt, why do we have to hurt the way we do? Why would God allow? Where is God in this situation? One thing we can learn, and one of the ways God responds to seeing human misbehavior is the fact that God hurts just as much as we hurt. We are made in the image of God. When we find ourselves disconnected or hurt by human misbehavior, God hurts as well. So whatever hurt you're going through, whatever hurt that you see, or when you want to correct a human misbehavior, understand God feels what you feel, even though God may not choose to intervene in spite of what you see or what experience you are hurting with. This is hence where human behavior comes in. Because when human behavior